Well, we are back. Chris, thanks so much for jumping on, man.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. It's always nice to kind of see this level of engagement too, because what you're saying is something that I think a lot of newer investors, right? You see the ideal picture of rental properties, right? You even read these books and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I can build my wealth. And one of the things Eddie's always talked about to me is this HGTV buyer, this person who's kind of entered the game in the last 10 years. They see it from the standpoint of like this light bulb moment, right? Like, oh, in 30 years, it'll be the best decision I ever made, right? But what they don't realize is, like you said, it's really that first 1 to 5 years. It's getting through, kind of getting that point to where the rents have actually gone up enough, and the appreciation might have happened to where you can maybe pull some cash out. All these little variables that can make it start to look a little bit attractive. But I love your suggestion about modeling it over 20 years, because that brings so much clarity to whether this is a good investment or a bad investment. And I think if more investors started looking at it that way, instead of I can get $200 a month, man, they wouldn't end up in this hot water and end up panic selling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The $250 a month, what's your freedom number, and divide 250 into that. As soon as you have that many houses, you're free.
Yeah.
It's really not that way.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the shift. We got a little echo here. I don't know if we can fix that, but I want to talk a little bit about your shift, because you went from originally just a passive investor buying turnkeys from other providers, and then you started supplying turnkeys, and you happen to be supplying turnkeys to people that I also know, right? So you were buying turnkeys from people that I know, and then you started providing turnkeys from some other people I know. And then you said, the construction management and all those things just made that a really thin margin business. And then you said, well, look, I've been very exposed to some great operators and I'm networked, and I'm going to add my wholesaling business. So we had a question earlier, because you mentioned your wholesaling business, and we have a lot of people that come to our audience that, are in the wholesaling business. And they said, well, how in the world would you add notes to your wholesaling business? So let's talk about that for a second. What is that? How would you do that?
You are the master at that. You came into several wholesaling masterminds that I belong to, and you presented that as, look at your garbage can leads. You're buying low cash now. You're selling as fast as you can for as much as you can. And all of the people who say, no, I'm not going to give you your low cash offer, pretty much go in the garbage can. And as a wholesaler, when you're able to go to a person and say, look, I know the full market is 100, and if you want to fix it up and take it to a realtor, you'll get 100. Might take a couple months, might lose a buyer or two with bad financing. A lot of them fail, but go get full market with a realtor if you have the money to fix it up. I'm an investor. I can give you this discounted price. I have to deduct the rehab cost, and I have to put a profit in there. So I can only give you $55,000. And that's how much really all of the other wholesalers are going to be. And then you build rapport and you close on that. And you're looking to assign that house to pretty much a rehabber. A rehabber, they want to be no more than 70% of the after repair value with their purchase and their rehab. So the rehabber might say, okay, all fixed up, it's 100. I can't be over 70 when I'm all in. Chris, I need it for 60 with 10,000 in repair. So now I'm making a $5,000 fee. That's the wholesale business. But the wholesaler that's passing up on the deals where the people just say no, you're able to now go to them and say, I'll tell you what, let's take your full market value. We'll minus your 10,000 in repairs. Now we're at 90 and you got it. I'll give you the full price. I could even give them the whole 100. I could even give them 110 as long as I get the right terms. So if I can get that with zero down and zero interest and payments for 20 years, I would take that at full market value. I don't want to overpay, but I know that when I turn around and sell that house, I will be able to sell it for more than I paid. I won't be upside down between buyer and seller, but I will have arbitrage. I will have spread. I will have a bigger down payment in than out. That's cash now. That keeps my acquisitions people paid and my operating expenses paid. I will have a higher monthly payment in than my monthly payment out. That's cash flow. And then when the day comes that they want to refinance the house or they want to sell the house, I'll have a lump sum come in if it occurs. If it doesn't, I also have the option of selling off that note at some point in time. So there's, in the wholesale business, it's just quick, small deals. I also wholetail, which is buying a nicer owner-occupant ready house, get it cheap and put it on the MLS and sell it for more. Maybe wipe it down, maybe not, do minimal work. And that's very lucrative, but it's very, very difficult. I mean, I spend a lot of money in marketing and talk to a lot of people every month. My acquisition people go through a lot of leads to get one out of several hundred that turns into a good hit. But it's still that one-time cash transactional thinking. It's not that passive income. It's not the arbitrage. And it's high tax, it's transactional tax. It's not, slow long-term capital gains. So there's a lot of different variables. I left a high-paying job to accelerate my path towards financial independence. I didn't leave it to replace it with another high-paying job where I no longer have all the benefits I used to have. So just being a wholesaler or just being a rehabber is just a transactional job. I'm really all about building the portfolio for the cash flow for the income. So that's why this switch over to notes now. At this height in the market, these elevated prices, it's the perfect time to grow your muscle to learn how to buy with good terms. Because when we come down the next slope and there's more sellers than buyers, that's when the person who has muscles developed for how to buy with great terms is going to be in the perfect position. It's really hard to do right now, but a lot of the people who buy from wholesalers won't need those wholesalers when we're in a different market. They'll be able to buy direct, and then the wholesale business can take a little bit of a headwind.
Right. And I think that this ties in well to, what Gary's talking about is, can wholesaling obviously get you basically more deals? And you explain that. And there's another question too that JR asked, that he said, is the volume of entrepreneurs engaging in this reaching a critical mass where it's no longer viable for a new investor? I think this is actually the exact reason why you have to acquire this skill set, because what Chris was saying about pricing is that sellers want this high price. Sellers want crazy prices. And Chris is now saying, hey, I have an opportunity to be able to give you that price. And so simply by having a skill set that other investors don't have, you have less competition. That's the game changer for the wholesaler, for the person who's trying to make that transactional income.
When we make an offer to a person, it's been a little challenging with my team. And now that I'm fully into focusing on converting it into a note-based buying business, all they were doing was offering cash. Mm-hmm. And when I said to them, look, if they don't take cash, then give it to me and I'll go to owner financing, they didn't get that. It was very hard to take that seller and say, okay, you're a trash can lead. I'm going to go hand you over to my manager who's going to talk to you about terms. Yeah. The change we just made is we no longer present only cash offers. Like all the other wholesalers, they're one-trick ponies. The change we made is you now have three options, sir. Here's our cash number, and we've explained it. Here is a medium-sized number with a couple percentage points in 20 years, little down payment. And here is your full price, 5% more than you asked for even, but with nothing down and equal payments over 20 years. If any one of these were to appeal to you more than the other, which would it be? And in offering like that, we are actually creating more cash transactions because it creates more dialogue. None of the other wholesalers offered that. We're also now getting seller finance notes leads started where before we didn't. So now I'm talking to people between option 2 and 3 and working through those. It takes several touches. It takes 5 or 6 conversations. But we're creating more of the notes leads. We're creating more of the cash deals. And we're standing ourselves apart from the rest of the fast cash close now bandit sign guys that only know how to do that.
Yeah, that's what I saw when I started speaking to a lot of these high volume real estate investor groups. I mean, they're smart guys, super smart guys, but I just saw it as they had a plan A and they didn't have a plan B. And if you could just still work plan A and then go do a terms deal. And of course, Chris, you're right. This is like, we don't know what we don't know until we learn it. You're a smart guy, but you didn't know all these little maneuvers until you got involved with us. And all of a sudden you're like, hey man, this is just common sense. Nothing's common sense until you have a base of knowledge, right? Then all of a sudden it's like, this makes sense or it doesn't make sense. So a couple of things I think are important. Gary had a question on there. He says, hey man, if I'm not a wholesaler, can I help other people? And yes, we have a technique that we teach a lot to show you how to go help wholesalers in your market. We call it the designated hitter. And we think that's a very lucrative program, underutilized in the market. So yes, Gary, there is a huge opportunity in doing that. The other thing is we have a lot of students, beginners, meaning that they don't have 20 rentals, to people that have hundreds of rentals that are kind of in our NoteSchool group, in our little, in our network, so to speak. And we're frequently asked, like, when do I note a property? When do I cash it? And Chris, you'd be the first to say, Eddie doesn't always say owner finance it.
No, I've shown you deals asking how to owner finance, how to structure it. And you said, don't sell it. These are the numbers. The numbers don't lie, right, Chris? Right. This tells you what real numbers are. And so once again, when somebody kind of gets in our network and follows us, we start showing them real examples, like whiteboarding it out. Brian, you do a great job of that, as does Joe, and I try to be decent at it myself. And like, just actually show people real numbers and how it works. And then all of a sudden you start developing a sense of, it's like you said, Chris, you can be promoted a piece of property, or you can learn to understand that the numbers of that property are down the road somewhere. They're going to be what they're going to be. And so when you learn to start doing that, and people say, well, that's a lot of trouble and stuff, but let me just tell you something, making wealth is sometimes worth a little bit of trouble, right? Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's a very hard process to go from changing something you've been doing for 20 years and you believe in. I believed I would retire on a rental portfolio. And in the last year, to go through and change vehicles, it took some time to get on board with that. But I came to realize, Eddie, I really haven't changed the road I'm on, and I haven't changed the destination. It's only the vehicle that I'm traveling in, and it's only partly, and it's only for now. There will be, I don't see how I'll ever stop wanting to accumulate more notes, but now's not the time for me personally to accumulate a lot of rentals. I'd probably pick up one or two a year still, if they're the home run and the right market and the right price, and I can super depreciate it, and it's just very, very specific. But that's because, I spend $14,000 a month in postcards and texting, and I go through a lot of leads. Yeah. So I can find those 1 in a million houses. But if you're just buying full price rentals, this probably isn't the time that I would encourage that. I think that in 2008, you could do it, and maybe in a few more years you can do it. But right now, I think that I want to be really, really good at talking to sellers who are having a hard time selling their house because it's a buyer's market. I want to be ready for that and learn how to do that now. I remember when nobody could get a loan. Talk about downward pressure on prices. The banks locked their doors. I would love to have been able to buy a house and negotiate seller financing terms then. That would be like, we'd be running out into the streets if that came back. So in any type of shift from a buyer's market to a seller's market, the answer, Gary, is it's always time to get in. It's never too late. It's always too soon to wait. There's ways to play every market. And in this time, in this market where the prices are, where they may or may not go, whether they keep going up for 2 more years or they level off and then they go up some more, whatever it is, there's a way to play the market. And personally for me, I think that notes are consistent through any market. And that's why I want that to be my primary seal going forward.